offline here as well, over in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. In the top left side of Oceanborn, we are looking at the main base of the man who is representing Team Liquid, Clem.
And the bottom right here from Twisted Minds in Korea, he's the blue Protoss player. It's classic.
This was always going to be a big series for Classic as well, but especially after not making it into IEM Katowice. Yeah, he's probably playing with that extra chip on his shoulder where he's like, all right, that was a disaster week. I just want to forget about it. And one way to forget about all of that real quick is obviously just win 2 series here in this championship bracket, because all you have to do is win 2 series and then you're immediately top 8 in this entire tournament. That's what these guys have deserved by their great online performances or offline performances for the guys that have participated in the GSL, obviously. 2 series into the top 8. That's all it takes. But obviously winning those 2 series is going to be hard because you're going up against the very best that are in this tournament, period.
Yeah, and again, we talk about how Classic, how good he's been over the course of this year. We saw him fall in Gamers 8. It was Takir, who at the time did have that best TVP. Now it's Clem. I don't know that by a mile, but certainly by a significant amount. And this is not a good map pool for him. And we talk about here, as we talk about the bans, the pick, we're starting on Oceanborn. The first 2 maps we get are not good Protoss maps, so Classic's gonna have to sustain. He's gonna have to find some way to deal with A, the relentless aggression of Clem, but also, as the game goes late, Clem, you talk about this Liberator idea, mass Liberators, Liberator range. There's no one better. I know we're saying there's no one better at that late game than Clem at this point.
Yeah. One thing that I have noticed is that a lot of Clem's TVPs became a little more competitive over the last few weeks, where I felt I watched 2 months of him demolish pretty much everyone that came across his path. Lately, I feel like a lot of the European Protosses are pushing him a little more. Doesn't mean Clem is no longer winning. No, he's absolutely still winning. But it seems like it's taking a little more out of him to get the W. And I don't know what that really all boils down to. I spoke a little bit with Clem about it as well, and he's like, yeah, the Protosses, they just keep on getting greedier, BO. They keep on expanding earlier, and Clem doesn't really like to rely on a lot of RNG. So he doesn't want to make certain decisions in the dark where, okay, if you go up to 3 bases mega quick, I know I can kill you if I do this build, but I have to decide this in advance, and if you then do something else, the game becomes uncomfortable for me. So basically, by Clem trying to be as solid as possible, he has made the game a little bit harder on himself, but hey, he's still getting the W's, and I guess that's all that matters.
And the other thing we gotta talk about is that these Terran aggressive pushes, they're still very good, Roddy, don't get me wrong. But they have lost half a step. You gotta spend a little bit more time on a tech lab for the starport to get the Raven upgrade, or you have to do something a little bit different. But we got Clem going with that aggressive option early on here in this first game. It's double Cyclone. We're going to have to see how many he goes for. But yeah.
Ooh. This is actually going to be scary as well. Whatever Clem decides to do as a follow-up is always going to hit pretty hard. But now I am concerned that Classic is going to go for one of these very quick 3-base setups, because I have the feeling that he hasn't scouted a crazy amount. Hopefully Classic is respecting this. I do believe he had a very early shield battery in the natural. Very happy to see that, because if you open up Oracle against Cyclones, you better get a shield battery in your natural. If you don't, you take the risk of losing the game at minute 4.
Yeah, it was kind of fun watching Clem in the first couple of days of the patch when things weren't quite figured out yet, but he knew Cyclones were good. Every single time a Protoss player opened Stargate against him, it was 4, 6 Cyclones, maybe a Viking, some Liberators, Marines, whatever it was. Run across the map, kill the Protoss player. Great, we're going to go to game 2. And it's been figured out, obviously, as you said. You get the shield battery, you make that happen. But
where's that second shield battery? I'm kind of curious about that. Is he building it just... Oh, right now? Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, that's a man who's lost a couple games against Cyclones, guys. Right? He's like, yeah, just in case. And you know what, BO? I don't hate it. First game of the tournament. You don't want to find yourself in a scenario where you do make one mistake with your Oracle or your Phoenix. As this Adept is trying to get some info, we'll get locked on and we'll get picked off immediately. But it is better to be safe than sorry, especially in your very first game of the tourney. Like if you're down 0-1 and your tournament life is on the line, you probably don't want to be building too many random batteries. But this early on, I'm completely okay with it, especially because he went Oracle first.
And on top of that, he didn't just see the 2 Cyclones, the Shade saw the other 2. So he knows what's happening right now. He's probably known for a little bit. We saw that double shield battery.
Oh, Okay, this is a little bit risky as the Cyclones are going to be able to lock on that Oracle, and that's then one dead Oracle for absolutely nothing other than a Revelation. I believe he cancelled battery number 2. I don't think we have it anymore. Yep, so he made it, he cancelled it, but now this is still a very sad game for Classic. 5 minutes, 20 seconds into the game, we're still on 2 bases. We have lost our Oracle that has done absolutely nothing other than drop a Revelation. We lose one of these pylons. Fortunately, he's not supply blocked yet, but Classic has just been able to get so little done, and I don't even feel like this Colossus is all that quick.
Yeah, certainly with Clem, though, when you do talk about this build, there is not even a small amount of tech deck, really, as medevacs show up on the field. And this is the problem. As he's getting ready to take the third base, Rotterdam, it's 2 Immortals, it's a couple Stalkers, there's not a lot, and Clem's just gonna pick up and go here. Phoenix are on the other side of the map.
Why are those Phoenixes on the other side of the map? The Cyclones are gonna at least be in a bit of trouble if the Immortals can get on top of them. The Immortals did manage to pick one off, but Classic is in danger of losing a lot of workers here very quickly, no matter how good his response is going to be. This will always be painful. The Robotics Bay is gonna get unpowered. We go for a recall. That's actually a bit of a fake recall. It's only the Phoenixes, but hey, that will help. And now the Immortals and the Stalkers and the basic gateway units are out of position, and all the Classic wants BOs that Colossus to show up.
No, he needs it, but for right now, he's getting some Marines pushing back a little bit, but the big deal, there's no shield battery here. Nothing to keep things alive, but the Immortals, they're gonna stand strong for now, and here comes that Warwalker. Here comes the Colossus that hopefully is gonna give Classic the save, and at the very least, Rotterdam, the Immortals alive. The power units are still here.
I'm impressed that Classic was able to keep it together all this well, and he's definitely not done yet, right? Because Clem is just gearing up for that second round, but that drop could have been devastating. The Robo Bay being unpowered is very annoying, and by the looks on the production tab, I don't think we have repowered it yet, right? Okay, he has repowered it now, but it's gonna take a little while before extended thermal lens is done. Not too many Marauders here in the mix, so as long as we keep the Colossus alive, it should be okay here for Classic. I think Clem maybe underestimated this Protoss army a tiny bit. I mean, it's a bit of an even fight so far. I don't know if it was necessary for Clem to take the fight like this, though.
No, but if he's gonna get the Immortals, it's 1 Stalker, 1 Colossus. Maybe he dives on there, but you talked about it, Roddy. It's day 1, group 1, match 1, series 1. You play to win the game, not maybe to win the game right now. And knocking down pylons on the map, knocking down Immortals, everything like that, it's value added, even if he doesn't get the Colossus.
And it's going to be so hard for Classic right now not to lose any additional work. As Clem already loading up a Widowmine, can obviously go for multiple Widowmine drops. Phoenixes, only 2 Phoenix, you have so little DPS, it's going to be hard to really get on top of medevacs. So far, this defense is excellent, kills 1, but that's just the first wave. Clem is going to go for another drop in the corner of the main. I think Rico is not going to be available. Good thing is that these Colossus can walk up and down cliffs, but it's going to be so painful. Classic is not done taking damage yet. That extended thermal lens upgrade will finish up, but geez Louise, that got close, and he's going to rebuild the Robo Bay immediately, Bio.
Yeah, he is, and that third Colossus is going to be out pretty quickly. So, on the context of losing Robo-Bays, it's not the end of the world, but it does mean you lose Disruptor opportunities, you lose a Colossus. You're not going to be able to rebuild it immediately, but again, we're seeing this Classic. Clem is leaning into him. Clem has these opportunities to find damage, and at the end of the day, it's not that bad.
No, it's definitely not that bad yet. Will this Colossus live? Unfortunately for Classic, it doesn't live, because up to that point, I was starting to believe a little bit, where it's like, you know, Classic was supposed to lose 20 probes a couple times, but he only lost 4 or 5. He has a couple of Phoenixes out once more. He's starting to stabilize on 3 or 4 Colossus, and maybe it's not all that bad, but right when you think that you see him lose one of these power units, obviously the Phoenix is flying into a Widowmine is painful. There is a chance he flies into another one, and that would be Omega painful. If Classic can just keep it together for another minute, BO, without taking catastrophic damage, he's got a chance, but we do have to acknowledge that he's got absolutely 0 map presence, right? Classic has no way to slow Clem down at all on the other side of the map.
Classic is getting a second Stargate and a Fleet Beacon, Roddy. He's got 79 probes, but he's only on 3 bases. He's been taking a lot of damage here. That feels maybe a little bit early as the Widowmine drop gets 3. This is surely a little too early, right?
It's very ambitious, but I have the feeling that he's not even going to believe in his gateway units altogether. So I don't think we're ever going to get Forge upgrades. And what he just is basically saying is, I'm going to play Protoss Mech, right? Or the equivalent of it. I'm going to rely on a couple of Robo units, and then I'm just going to spam out Phoenixes with any Impulse Crystals. Maybe go into Carriers early. Now, obviously, right when I see that, he's also getting Blink and a Warp Prism. That I don't understand. Like, maybe Charge is like, okay. I guess we're just trying to get a couple Carriers out, but that's a little ambitious, Classic.
And in all fairness to Classic here, we've been talking about how much Clem has been leaning into him, how much the harass has been doing or not doing. The supplies are still fairly equal. Classic is still on 3 bases. He's got a ton of probes. He needs that 4th base, though. So he's got an economy. It's going to be okay. And it is going to be just 2 carriers very quickly. But Roddy, the problem, Vikings are already on the way. It's single Stargates or Starports, so you'd love more, but we already have a significant Viking count out.
It's not going to be easy to keep the carriers alive, but hey, Classic is one of the best pros players on the planet. Let's hope that he knows what he is doing, as he's got 8 Stalkers on the field, but the Stalkers, especially without Blink, are useless. I don't think Classic can keep the 4th base alive. He seems to agree, and he has already cancelled it way in advance. Clem throwing down Ace scan. Did Clem already see the 2nd Stargate and the fleet beacon in the main? Because no, he hasn't seen that yet. So that's obviously something that Clem does need to see. But even without seeing it, BO, look at that. There is a 2nd Starport already on the way on the production tab. So we're going to have Gulls and multiple Vikings at once. It's not going to be easy for Classic to really get a lot of value out of these carriers.
Now, I think Iscan may have seen one of the carriers as they popped out, but certainly so. Here's opportunity, though, for Classic. Finally, he's on the map. He's going to warp in 2 Adepts. You got to go 3, right? At least to make sure you one-shot things, but he's going to get by 2 Adepts in. It actually pulls Clem back all the way on the Clem side of the map, so now Classic maybe can get that 4th base. Maybe this is stabilizing. We're going to get to 4 carriers pretty quickly. Blink's going to be done, +1. And these Adepts get 6 SCVs.
I'm actually kind of impressed they got 6 SCVs. I'm with you, a bit of an odd warp in, an odd moment to donate a Warp Prism, but clearly Classic just wants to buy time for himself. One carrier is very exposed though, and it means carrier has arrived and been picked off before the fight even started. And that's obviously not what Classic is looking for. It takes so long to build these bad boys. Clem should probably not fight near battery overcharge. His carriers have a crazy amount of shields, and it's very hard to pick one of them off near battery overcharge. I mean, I guess Classic's entire idea with that Prism was just like, please, please, please let me get up to 4 bases. Because once I'm a 4-base Protoss, I believe he's almost a 4-base Protoss, but I don't really believe in this Protoss army. I have the feeling that Clem got Classic right where he wants him. The Vikings are shooting at all the right targets, and there's really not a whole lot remaining for Classic. Whatever is left on the ground simply does not stand a chance against all the Marines and Marauders, and it's Liquid Clem who takes the 1-0 lead. And honestly, very Clem-like way. He just controlled everything from the very beginning till the end. He is the one who dictated the pace. He is the one who said this is where the action is going to take place, and the only thing that Classic could really do was survive.
Yeah, and you talked about Protoss players being greedy against Clem, finding that opportunity, and that's maybe what Clem doesn't like. Well, Classic was greedy in his tech. He wasn't greedy in his expanse. He wasn't greedy in playing that low-tech style that actually has been working fairly well against Clem. He kind of did the opposite. And when we talk about what you want to see here, you give Clem the map, you let him do whatever he wants, you let him get aggressive as you try to turtle up on 3 bases. That doesn't feel like the proper way to deal with Clem.
No, I don't think it was, but all things considered, the game started off as an absolute nightmare. We went for an Oracle, it died while dropping a single Revelation. We warped in a pylon to get a 3rd base up, realized we couldn't defend the 3rd base yet, so we lost that pylon too. Then you take 1 or 2 fights, you get dropped and you're out of position because he only had 2 Phoenixes. I really wonder how this entire game would have played out is if instead of going Oracle into Phoenix, we would have just played Phoenix from the get-go. Because then your Phoenix count is a little bit higher, then it's a lot more difficult for Clem to drop into the corner of your main, and then maybe Classic can go up to 4 bases a whole lot easier. And I feel like it all would have been fine, but I've never been too big of a fan of the Oracle in this matchup. I know a lot of professional pros players are, and that's obviously a lot more important BO than what I think. But especially in this day and age, with this current Cyclone that's so cheap, but so incredibly good against target openings, I really don't see too much value in Oracle into Phoenix.
You know, at least if you're going to do that, go and drop some stasis traps. Make it a little harder to push across. Even if you don't get anything, the scan drops. That's 250 minerals, right? It's more value than dropping a Revelation and losing the Oracle and not getting a lot on the other side. And the other problem with Oracles against Terran, it takes 3 shots to kill it. Any SDV, any Marine, it does less damage. You know, you're right.
And it's such an expensive unit, and like, I know we've seen some experiments where, like, all right, instead of going 1 Oracle, I honestly like this more. If you really want to play Oracle against Terran, you go triple Oracle, or even quad Oracle, where, yes, you can activate Pulsar Beam and just dive on top of a Terran army with a couple of Marines and a few Cyclones there, because Cyclones are very good against Oracles, but they're also very fragile. Cyclones melt incredibly quick against anything that can truly get on top of them. So if we want to go Oracle, then go all out and play triple Oracle for all I care, and then You mentioned those stasis traps, mate. That's so annoying for a Terran player. If every second screen they have to scan or they run into another stasis trap. And there's only so many times as a Terran that you're like, all right, one Marine is going to lead the charge, because eventually you have the dance where they send one Marine forward, the Protoss protects their stasis traps, so they pick up that one Marine, then it becomes really annoying. But I honestly feel like you're giving Terrans a dream scenario if you go one Oracle into Phoenix. The Oracle by itself is not strong enough to fight, and the Phoenix count is a lot lower, because you've been investing in that Oracle in the first place. So whatever you do, play it with heart and commitment.
And the thing, you talk about this as well, if you're going to open Phoenix, against Clem specifically, I really don't like Phoenix Colossus. It's too tech-heavy, it's too slow. Go with the charge lot style. Do what Firefly has been doing and Harstem did against Clem. That's what you really want. But in the bottom left here, in the red, he's up 1 game for Team Liquid. It's Clem.
Great start, obviously, for the young man. I know that he knows he can do it, but there are so many doubters out there, so it's great for him to start off the tournament like this. In the top right side, representing Twisted Minds, we are looking at the main base of the man who was the only Protoss player to make it into the top 8 of Gamers 8 last summer. This is Classic.
Man, Roddy, I love this. I know we're Christmas themed, but the Christmas music on the intro, I love it. Look, this is my Christmas present, right? It's Clem Classic, game 1 of the day. I've already unwrapped my present. We're a week early.
We're going to get many more presents over the weekend, though, BO. I hope you know that. You know, this is an awesome series, but I think we're going to have plenty of series that will rival it.
I mean, we got Rainer Bjorn coming up later.
Pretty
you know,
good.
It's not bad. Oliveira Solar, and that's just the group stage. I mean, it's just going to get better.
It's funny as well, because Rainer and Bjorn played against each other at the ESL Summer Championships back then in Jönköping. And that was obviously a very discussed series because of that Babylon game, right? Where in Rainer's eyes, he went Super Saiyan. In the eyes of many of the people online, Bjorn just couldn't move his hands anymore.
Yeah.
And Rainer's like, guys, it's not fair. Like, I know he's struggling, but I was blazing, man. I was so fast, and I was going full Super Saiyan. I was in everywhere at once, and people were like, yeah, but, you know, Bjorn was just not really feeling it at that moment, Rainer. And Rainer's like, oh, come on, I can win with you guys. But it will be very fun to see those two duke it out once more. Glad that Rainer made it. It was honestly a close call. Rainer has been very under the weather after the Home Story Cup, like many of the other casters and players that attended Scarlet, I believe, was very ill as well over the last week. But fortunately, in the end, all of our lovely nerds are here and are ready to play some video games. And I think that's all that matters, Peter.
Yeah, play video games and hopefully play them well as well, Roddy. You know, we're going to see that happen. But now we're on Alcyone. It's game 2. It's a map that is really nice to Terran to push through the middle, and it's a Stargate opener once again. Does Classic make those changes you talked about?
I'm not sure. Like, often they obviously come in with a plan, right? And if this is how he likes to play, if this is what he's been practicing, it doesn't matter what you and I or any other Protoss player in this tournament might think that he should do. If he believes in Oracle into Phoenix, he's going to do it. I personally hope for him and his sake that he's going to switch it up a little bit, but we will see. One more thing, by the way, that's maybe not like the biggest of deals, is we can see that the Reaper is here in the natural and he's going to get the scout off on the Stargate. What do you make of his Stargate positioning, Bia? First game, I thought it was a bit weird. Second game, a little bit weird once more.
I mean, I guess maybe you're trying to hide it, but the Reaper's going to go in the natural anyways, so it doesn't really do all that much. It does mean you're not, like, if you put it on the wall in the high ground, you're not going to get it sniped in some way, but most Protoss players aren't doing that anyways.
He changed his mind. He changed his mind. Now, it makes me happy because I like this build more,
yeah.
But what doesn't make me happy is that he's second-guessing himself this early into the tournament, right? Like, that's also not supposed to be a thing. But he queued up the Oracle. The Oracle was 4 seconds on the production tab. He's like, no, never mind. I'm not going to do it. I'll go Phoenix instead. Could also have to do with what the Adept scouted on the other side of the map. But I am happy to see Classic at least switching it up a little bit.
And a much quicker Robo as well coming on out. So any sort of aggression coming out of Clem, you're going to have a lot more Phoenix, as you talked about. You're going to have that Immortal faster. You're going to have an Observer to see across the map a little bit faster. But the big difference here from Clem, this is an early drop. It's going to be Marines, it's going to be Cyclones, but not Reactor Cyclones, one of them coming out at a time. And in the context of things, you get in a bunch of Phoenix against an early drop play. If you can prevent the mass unload, if you can stop it from being 6 Marines in a Cyclone or something, or 4 Marines in a Cyclone in the main base that just shoot all your Phoenix down, that's a pretty good option.
Yeah, I don't think it should be doable for Clem to get into the main base this early. Classic obviously needs to keep tabs on this army. He needs to keep track of it at all times. The closer it gets to his main, the more important that is, because Clem doesn't need a big window to unload a couple of units into the corner of your main, but I don't know how I feel about right on this moment, trying to drop the third base, at least starting the pylon there. That pylon is actually very important because he is supply blocked at the moment, so this pylon right now is one that he absolutely needs to defend. Well, apparently whatever Clem saw is scary enough. Clem does not want to take this fight. Classic will get away with a much quicker third base, right? Last game we saw him having all sorts of trouble 20 seconds into the future from now, and it may not seem like a big deal, but obviously in professional StarCraft 2, an expand being delayed for 20 or 30 seconds, that's a lifetime.
Oh, that's an eon, especially when you're, again, trying to withstand the pressure coming out of Clem. A slow third base means no overcharge on the third for a while. It means you're not mining as much to deal with any sort of paper cuts that you take. But again, we're going to see a different timing out of Clem here. He's going to have stim done right around 6 minutes or so, 6:30, +1 combat shields. And the other important thing is his third base is going to be a lot faster in this game. He's going to have that mid-game expansion. He's slightly less reliant on any damage he gets early on. But for now, the Phoenix, they're going to show up in the main base here. They're going to see the Widow Mines pop out and the Cyclones, and that should. Good lift up. There we go. You're going to be able to get out with one of them barely.
Honestly, I didn't like him turning around that much. Against the old Cyclone, I think that's a good move, but the new Cyclones, they just refresh so damn quick. So now you save one Phoenix that I think would have lived anyway, because the lock-on doesn't last forever, so you would have been able to break it. But by turning around your second Phoenix, trying to make sure the first one doesn't take any damage, the second one takes way more damage than the first one ever would have taken. So I don't think that was the greatest Phoenix move by Classic. I would have loved to see him overall be a bit more careful. It is always important as a pros player to get some eyes in the Terran main base. You want to see what kind of production facility setup they're working with. But I think to fly in like that, kind of as a mad lad behind the natural, straight across the entire main, you don't know where the Widow Mines are. You don't know where the Cyclones are. I don't think that's quite the right way to scout.
No, it's not. And the thing we have to talk about, not only is Classic's third base is faster, not only are his Colossus faster, his Twilight is faster behind this. He's getting a decent amount of Phoenix. Again, damage, but hasn't lost any. And he's going to delay the third base. I was going to talk about this. Clem, generally, when we talk about this build, the Terran player gets their command center in the main. It's still well-timed. You float it over. That one Adept is going to slow Clem down a little bit. So Classic holds the high ground. He's got this Colossus here. Force fields are going to be really nice, knocking off some Immortals at the start. And this is such a better game coming out of Classic compared to game one.
He is getting dropped though in the natural. We're gonna have to go for a recall immediately. Hope the rest of the army of Classic is safe. So far it is safe. Clem very quick to load up these units again. I think that was all fine for Classic, but the one thing I'm a bit concerned of is that his Phoenix count is somewhat low, and a lot of them are better than Bruce already. So we are one devastating Widow Mine shot away from barely having any anti-air anymore, making it so hard to get on top of Medivacs and make it so damn difficult to kill those Vikings that are obviously going to try to kill your Colossus. It's a lot more playable for Classic, but it's still an incredibly close and competitive game.
And the big deal, of course, is that the Twilight was done right around 7 minutes, 7:15. Your Blink is already on the way. This time last game, Twilight hadn't even started yet. You were so reliant. As the Widow Mine bait, is he gonna buy into it? No, he gets one, okay. And there's the second one as well, but it's not gonna be damage for now. It's not gonna be death for now, just damage.
Yeah, but that's so difficult because soon, obviously, Ghosts will eventually enter the battlefield, but we're already having a couple of Vikings. And Vikings, if they can just get in range of these Phoenixes, get a couple of shots off, it's going to be really difficult for Classic to keep these Colossus alive. I think he knows that, and I think that's why he had charge on the way for a split second. And he's like, no, never mind, I don't need charge right now. What I need is Blink, and he is indeed doing the same thing as he did last game, a second Stargate and a Fleet Beacon. It all feels indeed a little bit early, BO. I see you losing your mind. 69 probes is like, we're not that rich, mate.
Arguably in this game it's better though. The third base was faster, fourth base is faster, it's had less pressure. Overall, it's been a lot less resources. In fact, Classic has traded better than Clem this game. So it's still early, I agree. It's still not my favorite thing.
This is not enough, by the way. The one Phoenix does not have enough DPS. Classic, it's best to just go out of there ASAP because now you're in danger of losing a couple of these Phoenixes. First one gets locked on. In the end, he saves all 3 out of 4, so that's nice. Is that a very low HP medevac?
That's a
Clem,
very low
probably
HP
not. It's like, Clem, this is your captain speaking. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It's like, maybe we can just repair it, mate. But,
Radia, look at this, though. Not only do we have carriers on the way, which is maybe questionable, but Classic's in a better position this game to do it. There's a mothership on the way, and this is something we've seen evolution ever since the patch. It's a very different unit from what it was 2 months ago.
Yep. I don't know if I love where Classic is going. What I'm very worried about is that his ground army overall is just real vulnerable and weak. The only thing he has is +1 attack. We don't have any armor upgrades. He is getting 2 disruptors now, and that obviously then you start believing a bit more, because disruptors are great, not just in blowing up big Terran armies, but even if the Nova whiffs, if Terran is forced to retreat, that's maybe a moment for all these carriers to unload their interceptors. And the Colossus with their 9 range, they will always participate in the fight, even if the Terran is forced to run away from the balls. So I really like the addition of the disruptors, but I'm still kind of concerned, mate, about just 2-3 EMPs landing and Clem just saying like, all right, I'm just gonna stand my ground and fight here, because I'm not that concerned about your Protoss army, and honestly, I wouldn't be too concerned about it either yet.
No, not really. Now, there's going to be a drop in the natural here coming out of Clem as he looks to find some way to split things apart. That's a nice pylon, delaying a carry before it's ready. It's actually not going to depower the Robo, but again, there's no cannon there. It's going to have to be Stalkers arrive. And you talk about only having +1, at least they have Blink, but Rodney, the other problem, there is no charge. Classic has 0 abilities, 0 opportunity to do any sort of counter pressure to run across the map and force Clem back home.
And I really believe in certain builds, they don't always need to have a lot of gateways. I don't think you always need to go charge. I think there are different ways to make Protoss look good. But the weird thing is that he does have 8 gates, BO, so he is somewhat committed. Like, the Phoenixes are just going to die one by one here, and these carriers are going to have a very hard time ever getting their dream fight. The Talkers alone cannot stand there. So the only real good thing I kind of feel that Classic has going for himself here are the disruptors. But if there is anyone that's good in avoiding those Novas connecting with the Terran army, I would say it's that French kid that's sitting on the other side of the stage. Honestly, I'm concerned for Classic, even though he's maxed out, but maybe he can pull off a little bit of that Protoss veteran magic that we know that he does possess. Are these Stalkers about to get flanked on, by the way? Here are the Marauders, and these Stalkers are in trouble. So yes, you get 8 Marines, but you're going to lose 5 Stalkers in the process. Stalkers are a lot more expensive, Bio.
And that they are now in the last fight. Even before then, we saw Classic, he blinks forward, try to get a Viking, but he got a couple ghosts. So we are seeing him firing on all cylinders a little bit, knocking those ghosts down early. EMP still hit. And the important he's getting a go. Classic wants all the bases, right? Play Protoss mech, take all the bases. It's going to be a good time. Stalkers blink on top of the Vikings, though. And this is a promising start. Yes, EMPs hit everything, but a lot of the Vikings go down early. And a lot of these interceptors are out, and as Clem finds his way back, that's a big choke, but the disruptors are going to get dodged. And the slow zone does nothing here, Roddy. It doesn't catch any of the Terran units.
Mothership gets picked off. One Colossus alive at very low HP actually soaks up a full volley of all these Vikings. A massive overkill there on the side of Clem. That was kind of a big moment. I think Clem definitely did not have his entire army there at first, and he's like, yeah, but Classic, you're still afraid of what I got, right? And Classic is like, no, I'm not afraid at all, actually. Let's go ahead and fight. And I'm gonna say that went good for Classic, but if he cannot capitalize on it, then he's going to have to do it all over again. And I believe that the next fight is going to be a lot harder, because the Viking count is reaching numbers now where the Vikings can get in range and one-shot a carrier. And there is so little that Classic can do about it other than, I guess, zoning blinks. We are going to get Storm as well. I love it. It's complicated. It's double cybernetic score as well, so we get attack and armor at the same time. Classic is definitely going somewhere. I'm just worried because Clem is so damn good with high numbers of Vikings, and War Prisms, that's not going to be a thing in this game. Too many Sensor Towers, way too many Vikings.
Adding a floating factory as well, just add on to things. But here comes Classic, 198 supply, army in the middle of the map, trying to make sure he holds that Xel'Naga and maybe get a good fight out of Clem. I don't like fighting right now. There's so much tech that's just about done. +1 air armor, just about done. Storm done right now. Charge halfway done. There's a whole host of things that Classic has committed to he doesn't have yet. So you posture, sure, fine. You deal with drops, fine. But give it 30 seconds. Build yourself up into that much more powerful army.
And we know that he has a couple of Stalkers, as we're going to blink forward, gun down these 2 metavacs, and it obviously means all these buy units are stuck. Pretty expensive loss there by Clem. And if you look at Clem's piggy bank, it's not that Clem is crazy rich. I know he's got a couple of units on the way. He's building 3 command centers at once, but ghosts are expensive. They will always be expensive. Oh my goodness, this is so many Vikings. We need those High Templars to show up, BO. I know he's got them. He needs to land some storms, because we're not going to land any storms on this Viking flower. Our air fleet is going to get picked apart.
I mean, 5 Vikings go down very quickly. There's the cloak. Yes, EMP can shut it down, but if you're running, it just means that Clem cannot kite. It means you're going to get those better trades. And he does. We had 22 Vikings, 23 Vikings at the start of the fight. Now it's 17, and Clem's building 5 at a time. So a lot of Vikings went down in that fight, and it's trades.
And the best thing is that Classic did that without even landing a single storm. So he's got a very interesting army at the moment with a lot of Stalkers. Obviously, to zone away the Vikings, blink forward, force fights. Then we have a couple of high Templars waiting in the back. And if they can just land one devastating storm on these Vikings. Vikings are amazing, have a lot of micro potential, but they don't have crazy HP. So 1 or 2 storms is potentially all it takes for Classic. As Clem is still working on +3, Widowmine does not really connect, they're gonna blink away. Classic is just gonna walk up this ramp and try to force a fight. I hope he knows what he's doing. So far I've been loving the blinks though. I think the blinks have been very promising, making it so hard for Clem to get the fight that he's looking for. And Clem should obviously buy some time too, as he's waiting for big bio upgrades to come online, +3 attack and +3 armor.
And the big blinks as well. You get a lot of those ghosts down. Now there's the slow field, the cloak as well. This army, yeah, you can drop a scan, yeah, you can drop an EMP, but none of that seems to be available right now. So Classic, at the very least, he gets a base. At the very least, he's finding his way in.
No observer. Okay, there is an observer coming in from the back right now. That is big, because it's absolutely needed. Ghosts do decent amount of damage if you don't have any detection. The Vikings are still trying to one-shot all these units, and the mothership goes down, and 2 carriers get picked off as well. The Classic has done pretty damn good so far, but perhaps soon it's time to retreat for a little bit, wait for some reinforcements, as he is dropping a couple of the zoning storms. I'm just afraid for these Vikings to one-shot a few more carriers. As another carrier falls. That one barely survived. Nope, it dies in the end against the final volleys. Classic is rich, so it's okay to get a little bit reckless. And at this point, it's mostly the Stalkers that are doing most of the damage. I mean, I think we can get the Orbital, maybe then we need to retreat for a split second.
Man, Repair is so good. He's going to try to stick it, but the Immortal's down, so he doesn't have enough damage to knock this Orbital down. Second problem as well, there was no Warp Prism with this army. If Classic is just flooding Zealots, I think he might win the game, but he had to build it in the middle of the fight, so yeah, supply was good, but it was running from his side of the map, and that really slowed things down.
Well, that Warp Prism is going to get picked up immediately. A bunch of Zealots have shown up, but the Viking numbers are still so damn high that if they can take care of the carriers, you can obviously lend them, and landed Vikings are excellent against Stalkers. Classic realizes that without immediate reinforcements, he cannot continue this attack, so he goes for a recall. We are going to drop a nice storm as well, zoning storm, to at least buy some time for most of the units to get home. Earlier you mentioned that Classic traded better than Clem did in this game, and he has still done it. Clem has lost 3,000 resources more, so you can really see how difficult it was there for Clem to stay alive. But kudos to the French kid, man, because that was not easy. Classic was in his face, applying a lot of pressure, got so close to killing that Orbital. Would not have been the biggest of deals, guys. That's why we didn't really hype it up, because Clem has like 7 backup Orbitals, but at one point it kind of becomes personal, right? Where it's like, okay, the bare minimum I want to get done with this attack is kill your Orbital, and he didn't kill him, but it's okay.
And here's the interesting thing as well. Clem is building 6 Liberators at a time. We've talked a lot, well, much has been made of +2 Liberators, Liberator range as being this kind of breakpoint where suddenly it becomes very hard as this nice snipe on the Ghost, but EMP goes out. It becomes very hard for the Protoss player to deal with. I think in part that might be why we're seeing this very heavy carrier commitment early on to just prevent Clem from getting there. But it's out now. The Sky Toss is not as strong as it was. There's a lot more gateway units. And this armada of Terran, what are we at right now? In terms of it's 7 Liberators, 13 Vikings. This is a hard army to fight.
Yeah, this is a very difficult army to fight, and this is definitely not the place to fight it, but it kind of seems that Classic is annoyed a little bit over those bases being harassed right now by the Liberators. We still have 1 Phoenix, so you can obviously send that single Phoenix to deal with some of these Liberators. The only problem with this is that it takes a long time for 1 Phoenix to kill a Lib, and it will take a particularly long time if the Phoenix is not battling the Liberator at all.
At least you got +3 on the Phoenix, so that's something. But yeah, it's still going to take quite a while here. And the interesting thing is we're just seeing more carriers. That makes sense, right? It's a lot of damage, but the gold base is going to go down right now. And this is one of the problems when the Terran finally gets this Bio Liberator Viking composition. It's called Protoss Mech for a reason. It's strong in a straight-up fight. It's powerful. It's not mobile at all here. The Terran can start to move around the map and section things off, and it's a lot harder for the Protoss to defend.
A couple of Stalkers getting EMP. This is probably not what Classic wants to fight, but he does drop battery overcharge, so maybe he looks at this and says, it's now or never, this is the best fight I'm going to get. But I don't know if it's all that good, as the interceptors are getting absolutely obliterated. There are still a lot of carriers left though, and the battery overcharge is absolutely doing its thing. Carriers still going forward. They need to make sure they never get on top of the Marines, but they don't. Classic takes legitimately a very good fight at his own 3rd base, and Clem lost a lot of very expensive Terran units there.
Yeah, you talk about Liberators going down, and at the worst, it was 50% liberator or interceptor count. So the interceptors were still fighting very strong. And the problem was a lot of those Marines went down. We lost a lot of that anti-air very quickly in the fight. But the question now is, how does Classic punish Clem? He's got 3 command centers on the north side. He has pretty much every base available to him. You want to see Classic take this fight and swing it into an even more of an economic advantage. Take a base down, take 2 bases down, force Clem's area to be smaller.
What a great first series of the tournament. Classic with a 20-minute game here against Clem and an Alcyone, and he's not done yet. As he gets on top of one of the orbitals, he's going to kill it. He's going to kill the sensor tower as well. There are 4 more carriers in production, and this is where things can get difficult. Oh, what an EMP on every single High Templar. Clem now thinks that this is the moment to just go ahead and fight. Well, that was obviously a sick EMP, but you still need to respect the power of all these carriers, as a couple of Widowmines do blow up a lot of the interceptors, but there are so many of them. I mean, that EMP was godlike, but I almost feel that Clem underestimated the strength of the rest of the army a little bit.
That he did. There were still 50 interceptors even after the Widowmine. So Clem's trying to take this fight, but honestly, Roddy, he's back against the ropes right now. He didn't even lose the north side base. He just lost the SCVs there in Classic. He sends his opportunity to send us to game number 3. Stalker's gonna blink on top of this. Is this the move, Classic? Is this what you want? And it seems like it absolutely is. Everything goes down. Classic takes us to game 3.
Carriers have arrived, and even 18 minutes into a game, battery overcharge is that good. Because I have the feeling that without battery overcharge, that fight would have never been as amazing as it was actually turned out to be. Probably a frustrating and confusing game for Clem, where he's like, wait a minute, like, I thought I survived this carrier spot when you were attacking me, and I was barely able to hang in there for dear life. I thought it was supposed to get easier after this. And at one point, I feel like the game looked good for Clem, especially when you saw the Protoss army hover around those rocks, and you're like, oh no, like, that is a terrifying Terran force. You don't run into that. But then Clem ran into Classic, and Classic said like, all right, this is the best fight I'm going to take. You're going to try to kill a bunch of carriers that have crazy amounts of shields. This is potentially the game-deciding fight, because the game looked very promising for Clem. All right, this is very early, actually. This is a long time ago. This is where I kind of felt that Clem fought without a lot of his initial reinforcements, because you can see how many units come in from the bottom left that were absolutely not there initially on the top right.
Yeah, and it honestly could have been so much worse for Clem right there. Disruptor shots didn't land, slow zone didn't land. There was a lot of missed spellcasting, honestly, coming out of Classic in that fight, but even still, it was on the back, but it was fine. And the thing we're looking at here as well is, I don't know how much of a deal it made outside of that one chasing fight with the cloak field, but the big deal, you can't EMP a mothership anymore. You can make sure the cloak goes away, sure, fine, but they're gonna get their spells off. And that it provided value in terms of soaking Viking shots and also making it a little harder for Clem to kite as he runs away, which is one of Clem's strongest assets.
Yep. What a bizarre fight once more, just taking another look at it. And this was potentially our final fight, where Clem still had a lot of income, and he could have technically just sacrificed that base on the top left, maybe re-expand in the bottom right, because that base had not been taken at all. So it's not like these were the final resources that Clem could get his hands on. But Clem landed an absolutely god-tier EMP on 5 High Templars. But then he kind of forgot that the rest of the Protoss army is also still pretty good. So yes, that was a fantastic EMP, but I think Clem had to wait a bit more, because he clearly needed way more of those Vikings that he lost in the previous fight to deal with that many carriers. And honestly, kudos to Classic as well for finding that fine line between, I'm gonna make some basic units, I'm gonna make some Colossus, I'm gonna go into carriers, just kidding, it's a lot of Stalkers and I still make ground. Or maybe I'll make a few more carriers, now it's mostly ground. Just kidding, it is not ground anymore, it's all the carriers that are very well upgraded. And that's just a nightmare to play against. It's the same the other way around, but it's obviously very well executed by Classic.
And the big thing is, well, Classic had this big economy through the entire game. Clem, that last fight, he's 150 supply, he gets the big EMP. He was broke. He had 400 minerals in the bank, 100 gas, losing those bases. And yeah, you say, okay, maybe expand bottom side, do something like that. But how much do you give? I don't know that he was going to have time to max out again and develop an economy again. So you got to take the fight. But on the bottom left here, in the red for Team Liquid, tied up now, it's Clem.
In the top right side of Solaris, we are looking at the main base of the man who has not qualified for IM Katowice, but he shows us that he's still, without a doubt, one of the very best Protoss players on this planet. Twisted Minds Classic.
And as we get into this game number 3, there was another PVT, Roddy, that has been happening. It's on the B stream, and Gumiho, the man, the #1 Korean Terran. For the first time since 2020, it's not Maru this time of year. He took down Showtime 2-0, so the winner of this series gets the honor of a GSL Round of 4 rematch, maybe, or a pretty banging PVT or a TVT.
Yep, Gumiho obviously had a fantastic performance at the ESL Summer Championships over in Jönköping, where he made it all the way into the Grand Finals. And in that Grand Finals, he made the great Jonas Sutala absolutely work for it. That was a pretty competitive series, where at one point it even felt like, could this be the day of Gumiho? Could Gumiho actually stop Jona in this tournament? That didn't quite happen, but it was an amazing run. So when Bio says the #1 Korean Terran, before you guys get very angry at him, he means based on the global standings of EPT points. Because Gumiho has outperformed any other Korean Terran in that regard. I don't think Bio believes that Gumiho is the best Korean Terran out there. He's very good, but he's probably not the best.
He did beat Maru in the round of 12 in Katowice, or in Jönköping, so...
All right, if you believe it, then you believe it, mate, that's fine.
I'm allowed to be wrong.
I was trying to cover for you here before people get angry, but if you want to double down and be like, he's the #1 Terran, you know what, Bio, if he does end up being the best performing Korean Terran, you'll look like a genius.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far, but certainly he has had really the best year since he won his GSL. But I want to talk about this map a little bit, because we talked about the pool in Game 1 and how this really has been 2 Terran maps back-to-back. Solaris is one that Protoss actually tend to like a little bit, so we're seeing Clem finally changing something up even more. It's going to be an eBay block here. It's going to force Classic to be very far behind, and because of the third base layout, he's not going to want to go and take the natural in the third and let Clem run Hellions into his mineral land or something. So it's just a slowdown from Classic here in this Game 3.
Clem once more going for the reacted Cyclones. He's building 2 at a time. He might make number 3 and 4 as well. This is a map because of all the speed zones, where there is even a world where he might make more than that, even though you don't see that very often anymore in this matchup, and that would obviously make it a much bigger commitment coming out of Clem, but I don't think he's going to stop after these first 2. Classic needs to find like a fine balance between, do I want to get Stalkers, do I want to get Adepts? Adepts are tanky and can deal a lot of damage against Marines, but Adepts are not great against Cyclones, so you really need to have a couple of Stalkers, and he's going Oracle first again. I don't like the Oracle, Bio.
No, I don't, and he hasn't really seen all that much here. And again, the big deal, Clem, he's rallying immediately. He's not waiting for 4 Cyclones. He's going right now. Now, we do have the fight at the top of the ramp. The Zealot is going to knock a Marine before it goes down. But the problem is, again, Army's dying. Do we have a shield battery in the natural? That's the important thing.
We don't.
No,
Okay, but the good news is that it's a bit scary for Clem to go into the main. The bad news is Classic has 2 pilots. No, we're not going to pull probes into Cyclones, because it's not just 2 Cyclones, mate. It's Cyclone number 3 and 4 that are going to show up as well. Classic has played such a marvelous game up to this point, but this is an absolutely disastrous start. He's going to lose the stock. He's going to lose the Cyclone. He has lost 6 probes, and honestly, Bio, he has lost this game because he's got no more units left. Defending that far out without a battery against Cyclones, it just does not work. Cyclones are too good if you build 2 at a time with that reactor opening that Clem went for. Oh, what a brutal Game 3.
Yeah, this is why I was looking at Cyclones at the start of this patch. I'm like, yeah, Stargate openers are dead. It's not a thing. Cyclones, Marines are too good, and you're right, it was figured out, but Classic has not gone for that in this game. So you got a Stalker, you got a Cyclone, you got a Phoenix maybe. Nothing deals with this. This is a dead natural for now. Classic, yeah, it's going to be hard to get into the main base, but this is so much damage.
Yep, and obviously it is game over. Classic knows it's game over. Even as Scan goes down to get some high ground vision, and Clem will see there is absolutely nothing that is scary over here on the high ground. Classic is going to pull the probes one more time, but probes are terrible against Cyclones. A lot of things are bad against Cyclones. Immortals are great, but honestly, shield batteries are the one thing that you really want to get in a lot of these scenarios, especially if you don't know what's happening. You always need that battery. And we saw him be safe on Oceanborn. We even saw him temporarily warp in the second battery, right? Because he was worried. And he respected the Cyclone so much. Here in this final game, he didn't respect it at all. And he's paying the biggest price for it.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this is the fact that, I mean, he's going to get a Cyclone, but again, you're right.
It's over.
Pro pull, it doesn't matter. Clem is one of the few Terrans that really likes his eBay blocks. He's got a ton of aggressive options out of that. I wonder how much of this is playing against the standard Terran, you know, playing against Korean Terrans that don't eBay block all this much, and he's just not used to it. But Clem, he's going to move on. We got that TVT